everyone, I'm Abigail, this is Megan, and welcome to another Two Kids interview. We are joined by award-winning author Deborah Abela. Ms. Abela has written the Grimsdon trilogy, Max, Remy, Super Spy, Jasper Zamp, Soccer Legend, Ghost Club, the Spelling Bee series, the Book of Wondrous Possibilities, and more. Thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it.
You're super welcome. It's nice to be here.
You write children's books. How are your books influenced by your own childhood?
Oh, I think mostly because as a kid, I loved books. They were my safe space. They were the thing that made me happy. So if I had a bad day or I wasn't feeling very happy for whatever reason, I had a fight with my best friend, I could always pick up a book. And every time I opened that book, it literally felt like that story reached out and grabbed me and pulled me inside. And so I wanted to know as I got older, if I wrote stories, if I had that same feeling of like excitement and safety, but also adventure. And I still feel like that. It's been a long time since I was a little kid, but even when I'm writing a story, it's so easy to kind of lose myself while I'm writing, which is the same as when I'm reading. So my childhood of reading books absolutely influenced why I write now.
Did you ever do a spelling bee when you were younger?
Yes. So my spelling bee books did start because of my beautiful year 4 teacher, and her name was Miss Gray, and she did like a spelling competition but with a really fun twist. So on Monday she would hand us our spelling words, and on Friday we would have what's called the Spelling Olympics. And it was kind of like a running race where we would run to the board and write the words down, and we got points. And usually she put the boys against the girls, and each team really badly wanted to win. And the only way you could win, of course, is if you studied your words. So I kind of did have spelling bees when I was little, but in a really fun way.
How did you come up with the ideas for your books?
I think they're just things that I'm interested in, things that make me excited, things that I want to know more about, things that make me happy. Sometimes there are things that make me cranky. So you mentioned, Abigail, the Grimsdon trilogy that I wrote, which is basically 3 books, and this is the very, very first one called Grimsdon. And it just started because not only do I love books, but I also really, really love walking through nature. I love hiking through forests, and I love anything to do with nature. And I felt like us humans weren't doing a very good job of sometimes looking after the environment. And this book is literally a book of a question that came to me that was, I wonder what would happen if we didn't take care of our beautiful planet and something went a bit wrong. So I flooded a whole city, and I added sea creatures and flying machines and girls who were good with swords. But it really is kind of like my book that is my kind of plea to the world to take better care of the planet. So ideas come from stuff that I feel really, really passionately about, and ideas that really excite me.
What is your process when putting a book together? Do you decide the end before the middle, or do you put it together in order?
Oh, what a good question. It's different. Each book is so totally different, and sometimes the ideas, even where I get them from, sometimes I'll think of an idea and then I'll talk to my friends and they'll give me another idea. I'm in a critique group, so once a month I get with my writing friends and we give each other tips and advice on how to make our stories better. I rarely think of the ending first. I kind of like to know roughly where the story's going, because I do always plan, but I do also like to be a bit surprised about what happens in the ending. So I like to know generally what's going to happen, but the detail of exactly how it's going to happen, I like the characters almost to tell me what's going to happen.
Tell us about a time where you were doing something and noticed someone or something and thought, I need to put that in a book.
Well, that happens a lot, especially for little moments in a story. But I guess one of the biggest things that led to a book was my dad was born in a tiny little country called Malta, which is in Europe, and he was born during a bombing raid in the middle of World War II. And I grew up in Australia. I was born in Sydney in a hospital. So when I was little, I used to always say to my dad, "Dad, why were you born in a cave, and why was your country being bombed, and what was going on?" And so he used to tell me that true story of what happened to him as a kid, and that inspired a book where I set a story during the middle of World War II in Malta, but it's about a little girl who with her best friend has to try and survive World War II.
After you finished your first draft, how much do you revise the book?
Oh yes, I rewrite the book about 10 times at least, but I rewrite chapter 1 about 50 times because it's very, very, very important to get your first chapter just right and hopefully make it exciting enough that your readers will want to keep reading after chapter 1.
When you decided to become an author, did you worry at all if you could do it?
That, can I tell you, that is such a good question. I've written 30 books so far. I've been writing for over 20 years. I still worry with every single book if it's going to be good enough. I don't think most writers never get to a point where they think, you know what, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly that this book will do well and everybody will love it. All you can do as a writer is try and ignore those little voices in your head that tell you you can't do it or you're not good enough, and you just love the story. You just love your characters and you get excited about what's going to happen, and you just can't think about it, because seriously, every time I write a book, I don't know if it's going to be any good. I don't know if people are going to enjoy it. I just know that I really want to write it.
We heard that you got arrested twice. More details, please.
Yes, yes, I have to say the question I probably get asked the most is, why did I go to jail? So this was a story that happened to me when I left university. And my friends and I decided to go traveling for a little bit because we'd studied so hard and worked so hard at school and uni. And so we got this big old truck and we went to Africa, and we drove from the top of Africa down to the bottom. And while we were I'll tell you one story. I did get thrown in jail twice, but I'll tell you one story. We got stuck in this huge sandstorm in the middle of the Sahara Desert, which is at the top of Africa. And it literally was like being surrounded by a storm, but full of sand. So it was noisy, and the truck we were in was getting kind of battered around, bashed back and forth. Now, after 3 years of being at 3 hours of being in this sandstorm, the truck was half buried in sand. There was sand everywhere. And so we had to actually dig the sand away from our truck so we could keep driving through the desert. About a week after that, we were in a really busy, noisy city called Lagos in Nigeria. And some of my friends went to the market to buy some food, and I stayed on the truck with some other friends. But my friend Oni is on the truck with me. She's holding her camera up into the light. She can see through the lens of her camera these little black dots, and sand has gotten into her camera, which means every photograph she takes is going to have black dots all over it. So she's kind of complaining and moaning and saying, "Oh, I can't believe my camera, it's ruined." But she didn't realize she was accidentally pointing this camera at these big military guys down the road with these big guns, and they were guarding an important government building. So they saw my friend on the back of this truck, and they thought she was pointing her camera at them and basically spying on them. So they raced towards our truck, and they were really upset, and they started yelling and screaming, and they shoved these guns into the back of us and then down this little narrow alleyway, and they threw us in jail because they thought we were spies.
Glad you got out okay.
Thank you. Me too.
Anyway, moving on from that, what writer has had the most influence on you?
Look, I have to say, so many, of course, but when I was young, it had to be Dr. Seuss. And I just, even today, I read Dr. Seuss books and I love them. And I think they're so clever and they're so fun. And it's like reading a song. They're so lyrical and lovely. And there was one book in particular called The Lorax. And The Lorax was Dr. Seuss's cranky book about us humans needing to take better care of the planet. And that, I realized years and years later, inspired my book Grimsdon. And so when I look at this book, I realize this was inspired by my reading of Dr. Seuss and us needing to take better care of the planet. So probably from when I was young, it has to be Dr. Seuss.
What did you think of the Lorax movie?
I haven't seen it, and I haven't seen it because I love the book so much that I didn't want to see the movie in case it sort of spoiled it. Did you see it?
Yes.
Did you enjoy?
Yes, we enjoyed it. Well, I did.
Okay. All right. Maybe now I'll. Okay. Maybe now I'll see it.
What book of yours do you think would make the best movie?
Look, I really like the Spelling Bee series because it's just about a young girl who's really nervous and shy and awkward, and she's also a brilliant speller, and her parents encourage her. Her whole family actually encourage her to enter a spelling bee. And she doesn't want to do it, but knowing that she has her family support and they kind of love her and they're going to cheer her on, she actually gets the bravery to sign up and enter. And I think it would make such a lovely story. And I think one day I would love to see that book as a film.
What inspired you to name Summer the girl that gets jealous of India in the stupendously spectacular spelling bee book? To name her that.
I think naming characters in a book is always quite tricky. And so I thought Summer is such a positive, lovely sort of word, isn't it? Like people feel good when summer finally comes and they can, get rid of all their big overcoats and their hats, their woolen hats and stuff. And summer's always a really kind of, fun, exciting place. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be good to make this not very nice character? She kind of tells people what to do all the time, and she's not a very nice character. She doesn't treat the other spelling bee contestants very well. And I thought, wouldn't it be good to give her a name that kind of in a way doesn't match her personality at first? So I like doing that. Sometimes the name of characters really suits them and matches exactly who they are. But I think as we get to know Summer better, we realize there is a summery personality underneath all of that crankiness.
What advice do you have for young people who want to write?
Oh, read. Read because you love it. And that also means, though, sometimes if you pick up a book and you're not enjoying it, it's okay to put it down. It's okay not to finish it because maybe later at a different time you'll finish it, or maybe that book is just not for you. So read. Try to ignore those voices in your head, and we all have them, that tell you your story is not good enough, or no one's going to like it. Just try and turn off those voices and just write because you love it, and try as much as you can to write every single day.
That's pretty big advice. Do you also have a smaller tip? Something you do when you're writing that maybe a lot of people don't?
I think for me, one of the biggest tips that I remind myself about is, what does my character want? And once I know what my character wants, and then all the other stuff will follow. And my story has to absolutely be about that. So whether it's a young girl who wants to survive a bombing raid in World War II, whether it's another girl who wants to win a spelling competition, or escape from a flooded city, whatever it is your character wants, everything kind of has to happen because of that. And my job as an author is to make it hard for them to get the thing they want. Which means I often get to create a lot of trouble for my characters.
Do you have any other projects in the works that you can tell us about?
Yeah, I do. I'm working on a project now called the Kindness Project, and I'm almost on my final draft of that. So I've rewritten that a lot of times, and it's about a bunch of kids who are in a class, and their teacher gives them a term assignment. And the term assignment is called the Kindness Project. So in groups, they have to come up with something that makes the world a better place. Totally up to them what they choose. But my main character is put into a group with kids who do not like each other. So they have to somehow work together to come up with something that makes the world a better place. And because they work together on this kindness project, they actually realize they have way more in common than they thought possible.
I would read that book.
Oh, thank you. It's nearly finished.
Finally, it's time for our Turbo 10. 10 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Ready?
Let's go. Number 1. What is your favorite phrase to use?
No worries.
Number 2. What is one subject you'd love to learn more about?
Ooh. Oh my gosh. I would like to learn, I think, much more about marine biology.
Number 3. What is your go-to snack food?
I think it would have to be hummus and queso.
Number 4. What was your favorite book growing up?
Okay, it has to be. Oh, if I choose one, it has to be The Lorax by Dr. Seuss.
Number 5. If you could teleport somewhere right now, where would you go?
Malta.
Number 6. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, I think my power might be the ability to change people from doing mean stuff to kind stuff.
Number 7. What was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
Oh gosh, I really like Bugs Bunny.
Number 8. What was your favorite rainy day activity?
Reading.
Number 9. If you could have any 3 dinner guests, who would they be? No rules.
I think it would be Roald Dahl because he was a kids' book author, but he was also a bit cranky with adults, and I quite like that. I think also probably Kate DiCamillo, who's one of my favorite authors, and maybe Dr. Seuss. Let's have just a table of authors and illustrators.
Number 10. What's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Just be yourself.
You did fantastic. And thank you for spending this time with us. We can't wait to read your future books.
Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, Meghan, so much. It was really fun to chat with you.